Hello everyone and welcome to this issue of Anti-Life Reviews. I know I've slacked off already in the month of February, but once again medical issues arose. That's getting tiresome, I'm sure to hear, but I'm going to attempt to get back on track. I'm going to start by releasing all of my February videos at once, if you haven't noticed. That's right, all four. Why don't I just do one big video? Because I do the intros last, so everything else is already written and often recorded. But we are going on in this video to look at part 2 of Scud, the Disposable Assassin, with issues 7 through 12 published by Fireman Press from May 1995 to sometime in 1996. I can't get a definite month on that one. Let's no longer stand on ceremony and get to the disposable one. The writers and artists on this are, we have the creator, head writer, and artist is Rob Schrab, from Parks and Rec, Workaholics, Mystery Science Theater 3000, to the, as I've said before, shockingly good modern Creepshow, a talented, funny man who's influenced the sense of modern comedy heavily. I kind of hate that I don't have more to say weekly when I'm doing these month-long reviews, but it is what it is. Second to him is Dan Harmon. Just between Community and Rick and Morty, the man has solidified himself as a legend in the comedy genre, and rightfully so, as I'm a fan of both of those. As I said last video, he also uses Scud as a prototype for Mr. Meeseeks, which I have refuted, but still, look at me, I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Which honestly makes me hear Scud's voice in an entirely different light, as I kind of imagine him more deadpan, Deadpool, Peter Venkman style of voice, but that is what it is. And Mondi Carter. I've learned nothing new about this person. We'll probably only mention them in passing from here on out. Moving over to these issues, where do we leave our heartbreaker of a hero? Well, Scud is a disposable assassin, in which he dies after killing his target, but this Scud doesn't want to die. So after incapacitating his enemy, a giant monstrous patchwork squid plug beast called Jeff, Scud puts her in the hospital. But now he's got medical bills to pay, as we all do. So he has to take jobs, and after lots of shenanigans, including getting himself in good with the mob, he begins working for an assassin company. And he's hired by a Mayor Burnside, who owes a lot of cocaine money to a Nathan Twist. Well, Scud is supposed to take out Nathan and his group of Cenobite animal monsters. Scud is partnered with a Zipperman, Drywall, who can seemingly pull weapons out of himself at will. Also, Scud's arm is being worked on, so he is given a human arm as a loaner. But as we found out at the end of the last issue, it's a werewolf arm. Scud is in the throes of a lycanthropedic madness and has invited all the rest of Nathan Twist and his gang to a showdown. And a showdown we shall have, where Scud and Drywall take out all the members save Nathan himself with ruthless efficiency. Well, where is Nathan? He is ruining Mayor Burnside's reputation and setting himself up as mayor of this lowly town. Well, as Scud and Drywall show up for a fight, you know who else does? Jeff, free from the hospital and ready to kill Scud for killing her eggs, all back in issue 1. Scud and Drywall don't do so well after a fashion, against Jeff, of course, but before she can kill the duo, Drywall offers Scud to jump into him, which is full of an infinite dimension of, well, things. Scud prepares for battle as Jeff manages to get inside Drywall, but Scud seems to kill Jeff before escaping on a nuke Drywall is bringing out because the former mayor has turned the town on Drywall. So Jeff is left inside Drywall, I guess. We'll hear more about that next issue. Scud holds off the town, and they ride Mayor Burnside out of town on a rail, or a megaton bomb anyways. And this is where Scud finds out what happened to his robot arm. Well, it was sent to the British Space Force, American branch, and is on a space station. So Scud hitches a ride on a train spaceship, deals with Joe Cool, a robot dog who is essentially in charge of the space station, and finds his robot arm in the hands, or socket, of a murderer werewolf called Fenris, who wants to evolve into total destruction a la Ragnarok. And he does evolve into some kind of black hole monster, but is easily taken down thanks to the combined efforts of Scud and Joe Cool. And Scud gets his robot arm back. He then lands his spaceship accidentally at a Mr. Tough Guy Competition 2025, which is next year. And after a series of attempts to win the contest at the behest of Scud Co., who say if he does, they will take the bomb out of his body, he ends up losing to a woman we saw briefly issues ago, Susudio, to end this week's rundown of Scud, the Disposable Assassin. There's also a backstory running through these issues were Captain Jones, an enemy of Scud who was running a prison that Scud destroyed, takes out his mafia friends at the behest of one Mr. Spider God. Well, let's talk about the writing, story, and whatnot before moving on to the art. I want to say first, and I believe I did last week, but Rob reminds me of a more disjointed Chris Claremont. And I mean that in a positive way. Chris, when he was writing the X-Men, had this way of weaving in all of these small stories lingering in the background and having them come back around when it was most important, which doesn't seem like an odd thing to do, but often comic writers just write a sort of straightforward narrative moving from beat to beat. And while they may have subplots, they don't tend to have really long-term ones very often. I mean, some people do, Jonathan Hickman, etc. The good ones do, but most don't. But Rob seemed to be able to leave lingering pieces, the overarching thing with Jeff, the maid Scud plots, which are always, 1 to 3 issues of just balls to the wall nonsense are there. But then we get stuff with Captain Jones, Spider-God, the Mafia studio, who was introduced in a panel issues ago and is now important. I really enjoy that because it makes you pay attention to the small things in all of this absolute chaos. Though I want to say, stories laid out in these 6 issues were not quite as enthralling as the first 6. Exciting, yes. Kinetic, yes. Just lots of madness, yes. But the actual stories kind of wrote themselves into a corner and then ended fairly boringly, I want to say. The fights themselves are always on point, and that's largely due to the art. I just think introducing lots and lots of characters and then having them do something for an issue or two and then die is kind of disappointing, as there are lots of inspired designs, especially for Nathan Twist's Cenobite animal people. But even with that, okay, Jeff kills Nathan, but then Jeff is just left inside of drywall. We don't ever really get a follow-up on that. I mean, we will, but it's kind of weird. I was also confused why Mayor Burnside wanted to kill drywall or get the people to. The whole space stuff was interesting. I liked Fenris, obviously mythologically son of Loki, kills Odin, helps start Ragnarok. All very cool, but then he evolves into a black hole, but is still a wolf guy. And how did he lose his arm in the first place, since we see him regenerate from every other attack that happens to him? I mean, quite literally, he isn't just killed. He is left adrift in space to explode and reform forever. It was a bit too high concept to be tackled in 2 issues and ended in a few pages. It felt rushed, and like if that story could breathe, it could be really interesting. Then the last part, the tough guy competition, was utterly boring. I wasn't even worth mentioning a lot of it because it was set up to studio. So a mixed bag here. I enjoyed mostly all of it. It just seemed like someone could have sat Rob and Dan down and said, hey, let's get some of this time to develop. But I guess they have places to go, I suppose. In the first issue here, Scud gets his Fenris arm. He talks the entire issue until it goes away in Shakespearean quotes. It made me chuckle. There is a moment between Joe Cool and the robot dog on the space station in Scud where they have an Isaac Asimov-inspired argument about the laws of robotics inside of themselves that I enjoyed as well. I'm a big Asimov fan, and as far as Fenris, he gives this great speech about Luna, the mother, the moon, giving gifts of new biology, how it guides evolution. I wanted more of that. Like I mentioned, that character just got rushed, and I'd really like to see that fleshed out for a couple more issues. It's also a moment we see Hank Grit, character that gets mentioned frequently, but he's just a ghostly apparition that helps Scud for a second. So far, we've seen a gang that worships him mentioned on TV, and some food stuffs named after him. He's like a John Wayne type of character. I wonder if that goes anywhere. This time we didn't get just the usual, who do we want to voice the characters? All la Scud is John Malkovich, and Jeremy Irons, Dave Foley, Terrence Stamp, Gwyneth Paltrow, Bob Costas, Henry Rollins, a Dalek, which is the second Dalek reference in these issues. But we also get bands and songs for individual moments in the comic, with the likes of the Butthole Surfers, D-Light, Devo, Liebach, etc. But somehow not Phil Collins for studio. Weird. As far as the art goes, outside of issue 12, the art remains sharp, consistent, frantic, and busy. You have to pay attention. You have to. There are so many fun little jokes going on in the background, especially when they're inside drywall, where he has this infinite dimension inside of him, but everything is sectioned off into cubicles with labels, with things like robots, which included a number of robots from, pop culture robots, and a Dalek, which, a Dalek is not a robot, but whatever. But also has hot tubs, issues of Scud #1, Cars, turds for some reason. We see Bill Cosby record that aged well. In fact, I want to say I love all the character designs we got here. Nathan Twist's gang was really cool. Fenris looked like Violator from the Spawn comics. And Drywall I adored. He looked like an evil character from Coraline with button eyes, but he's fabric with all these zippers. He doesn't always know what he's going to come out of his zippers. Drywall is easily one of my favorite characters and will remain so, though he kind of gets pushed to the background for a bit. Issue 9 is also one of my favorite covers of all time. I know it's simple. It's just like a Scud toy, with the hard cardboard backing you'd see in him in plastic. But I remember seeing that as a kid and just got a real chuckle out of it. It always stuck with me. Issue 12, though. Not only is the writing boring, frankly, the art takes a real dip. Becomes cartoonish looking, like it was outsourced and someone is trying to replicate the art of a previous issue. So I don't know if mentally my mind said the story was bad because the art was blah, or they both were just not good. But it was really jarring to go into that next issue and just be hit by these off-model, off-kilter, odd faces and really uninspired designs. It was disappointing and left me with a bad taste in my mouth coming out of these issues, but I don't want to be too harsh, as there's a lot more to go. I think we have 24 issues in total. Overall, I continue to recommend Scud, absolutely, though we are seemingly getting some of the issues that plague a lot of independent comics up until this day. Padding and lack of complete focus, lack of direction in a lot of ways. I mentioned there are lots of moving parts and backstories that are coming up, but I'm not sure these people have any idea where they want them to actually go. I am starting to feel this is a little bit of fly by the seat of our pants kind of thing, and not a story with any defined outlook. We are getting stuff crammed in that's too big, too high concept, and is rushed through. Hoping this will change going into these middle issues. So that was issues 7 through 12 of Scud, the Disposable Assassin. If you had to have someone do your voice for an animated series, who would you pick? Let me know down below. I'm genuinely curious. Also, don't forget to head on over to my Instagram under DemonPeaks and add me there for Twin Peaks meme goodness. Don't forget to join me next episode for issues 13 through 18 of Scud, the Disposable Assassin. This has been the Eternal Micaiah, the only demon who loves you. I don't care what the other ones whisper into your ear at nights. Thank you, and goodbye.